Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing the doors on this truck. So we already have the handles in, we have our latches in. That's something that we had to do to get the door alignment correct. So you saw that those are in on the last video of this truck. So those are definitely installed. They are not completely installed. So the only thing that's installed would be the latch assembly and the handle, front and rear door. You can see there's no locks here. The rivet's not here for the lock actuator, but we're going to go ahead and put all the guts in these doors today. I've already done the other side just to refresh myself, and we're going to go ahead and start with this rear door. This rear door is going to be the hardest to do because in reality, the window has to almost go in first. So the window goes in and then you start putting everything else in around it. But for the first thing we're going to do back here is we're definitely going to put the lock actuator in because you need to get your arm down in there to get that in. And then we have a new weather stripping seal that will go inside the door as well. But before we put that in, the window has to go in. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting this all together for you. And you are going to need a rivet gun. So we have this one here, and you're going to need a bunch of rivets because there's a lot. But what's nice is whenever I do these, I use the correct rivet down here, which is the large headed black rivet. Which is this guy here. So we use this for the door lock actuator because that's the proper rivet for there. And we'll go ahead and get this all put together. To do this easily, a power probe is a very handy tool to have because you can run the window motor up and down without having to try to hook up the harness or have a battery installed in the truck and have everything ran in the truck. So it's a lot easier to use a power probe to run these windows up and down. But we're going to go ahead and get this lock actuator put in, and I'm going to show you putting it in, and we got to run the wiring. So we got to plug it in first, because if you put the actuator on the door, then try to plug it in later. It's very, very difficult because it's all the way down here for your plug. So it's easier to run your harness in and plug it in and then fasten the actuator to the door itself. And then once we do that, we'll go ahead and drop the glass in, literally, spin it, and then start putting our window tracks in. And then once we get the window track in, we can go ahead and hold the window up, get the middle piece in, set it off to the side, get the regulator set in, get everything set up, and then start riveting everything together. So this is a pain, but I know that this is not something that everybody knows how to do. So I'm going to try to cover this as best I can. So bear with me on this video. It might be lengthy. It might be a little boring. It might be a little tedious, but try to show you the process that I've done these doors with. The only thing that I haven't figured out a great way to do is getting the lock actuating system. So this is the rod and system and everything up in here, because it goes like this in the door. And if you try to put this in before you put anything else in, it's in the way of getting everything else in. So you have to have everything put together, and then you put this in, and it's kind of a pain to kind of wiggle it in there. So I don't really know the best plan of action or which process step that this gets to go in, but I put it in last because you can get it in there. It just kind of sucks, but at least it's not in the way and you're fighting it the whole time. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to run all the wiring inside this door. So in our wiring here, these wires are notorious for breaking in the middle here, and I ended up redoing every large gauge wire through here, so it does have some flex to it again, and reset it up so that it's hopefully in the right positioning. These grommets will slide on here a little bit, so if they need to be adjusted a little bit, that's fine. If you're going to be doing this yourself, getting this harness out of the door is a very large pain in the butt if you're trying to do it with everything installed. But you can replace these wires, but you have to get the wiring harness out of the door to do it properly. But there's a zip tie on this side. So this would be the door side. There's a zip tie inside here. So if you're trying to fish new wires through here, you got to basically pull the wires out and then rip the zip tie out of the grommet because it's molded in around it. And then it'll give you the room to get everything through it easily. So we went ahead and redid all this, and we're going to put this in first. So we've got our wiring harness in here, and the door boots installed down here on both sides. We got the wiring harness installed there. I know you couldn't see a whole lot, so move the camera down here so you could see the harness. And you can see that it's got some wiggle room, and this will actually rotate the way it's supposed to. The wires we used are a little bit better quality, and they shouldn't get hard and brittle and break. So we have a lot of flexibility here. When you put a splice down here in these harnesses right in the middle, they just break on the other side of the splice because it's just another bending point. But now you have this harness, and the harness here is kind of funky. So this is your door actuator plug, and you can see that this one's broken off here, the plug for holding it, and the actuator is down inside the door here. That's the actuator here, and this plugs into the bottom of it. And I have it propped up on the door latch assembly over there. You can see it's out of the clip up here, and it's just kind of hanging out. So I'm going to go ahead, plug this in, and then I'll swing that actuator down and hook it the rest of the way in the latch assembly, and then go ahead and attach that actuator to the door. Now, if you're concerned about this coming out, you can run a zip tie around it, or pull the boot up and tape it, which I'm probably going to put some tape around it, make sure that it stays in, because you don't want it falling out. Like, it comes out very, very easily. So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to go ahead and put some tape around that just to keep it attached. And there's no real good way to put a zip tie on it. You could put a zip tie up over and then up around the attachment point here, but you don't want to hinder the way that this can move, because this needs to move a little bit. So you can't really use that either. So we're just going to put some tape around it, and hopefully that'll hold it really well. If you really, really want to, probably put 2 little zip ties around the tape as well to hold it together. I went a little bit overkill on that tape, so hopefully nobody has to try to unplug that in the door. But to get it out anyway, you're going to end up tearing the whole door apart anyway, because it's not like you can just take those out. Now that we have it set down in there, it's really hard to see in this door. I'm going to try and show it to you down there. We're going to go ahead and put the rivet in and make sure that the lock assembly works correctly. So we do have the right range of motion here. So we're going to go ahead and put this rivet in out here, which is this guy here. So we got the rivet out here that holds the actuator. Your actuator's down in there. See it off to the left there. And we're going to go ahead and hold the actuator there and get this rivet put in. This can be kind of funky because this is a three-handed operation, but I only have two hands. So you get to watch me do funny things. Now what you can do is once you get a couple on there, you can see that the inside here, that the actuator actually won't come off the rivet anymore. So that rivet's expanded enough, and now you can just go ahead and install it normally because it won't come off of there. So now we get to an issue where the rivet is free floating inside here. So that can kind of cause an issue with trying to get it out, because as you work the handles, it just wants to slide back in. So that's always fun with these. So I've had this problem before, and there's no good way to do this other than try to shove a screwdriver down in there to hold that rivet from moving back in. So I got to grab a screwdriver and stick it down in there and hopefully be able to get that in there and keep that rivet from wanting to float back in. So you can see the screwdrivers down in between the bracket there and the actuator. And basically I just held it in there to keep that rivet from pushing back in. So now we have the actuator installed here. Nice factory rivet, so you'd never know that it was actually changed, which is what we're shooting for here. But now that that's all done inside here, we'll go ahead and pull that screwdriver out of there, and we'll go ahead and get the glass put in. So now we have the harness here, and This harness can be a little bit wonky with you. Now this push tab here will actually go to the handle, but I do this for now because it keeps that wiring up out of your way. And then this little push tab should go in this general neighborhood right here. So we're actually missing the push tab that goes here. So I'm going to go ahead and affix that push tab onto that harness and get it fixed here, because it can actually get underneath the wiring or underneath the window there, which is not what you want. So we're going to go ahead, do that, and then start getting everything put in here. So we have our window here. This is the way that this window is supposed to be. I have it marked here, driver's rear inside. So this is the way the window will be, and probably clean it up a little bit here before I pop it in, but it'll go in, and I want to say it goes like this, and then you'll get it down in the door and you'll rotate it. But we're going to find out because I can't remember. However, it will only go in one way, so you'll get it in there and you'll fish it this way, or you'll put it down in and turn it this way. So I want to say it goes this way because the latch assembly, you get a little bit more freedom with the track on the latch side. But we're going to go ahead and clean this window up and get this put down in here. So we got our window pretty much clean. There's some still stuff on the bottom of the window, but it's been there forever, so don't really want to try to take a razor to it right now. But so you can see just like that. Now I originally said that the window track would have to be on the back side, but the window track is definitely goes towards the front of the door. The only thing that sucks about this is you got to let this window go down in the door so that you can put your window track and your window seal in. So I have to put this window down in the door. I would love to be able to just tape it up, which I think that's going to be something I can do, but I don't really want to tape it up in case it were to fall. There's nothing here to really hold it. So I have something that we're going to try here. Nope. So we're just going to let it sit down in this door carefully. So now that it's down in the door there, which it sucks to get it back out of there, but now we have the opportunity that we can go ahead and put our new window seal in along with our tracks. So we have our old seal here, and your new seal is going to be a little bit longer than these, which that's fine. It's better to be a little bit longer and leave a little bit of a tail than it is to, say, cut it too short like this one would be. But we're going to go ahead and get these put in. Now these are different, so I do have these marked front driver's rear, rear driver's rear. We're going to go ahead and take this old seal off of here. And we'll put these guys in here. So this is the front one here. It'll come in and it will go up here in the front. Like this. And I'll show these both to you before I put the seal in so you can see how these are supposed to be. And I just get the bolt started. Same for the rear. So this is what you're looking for with these. You want the metal to be on the inside of the rail here, and there's another little leg that would be on the outside, or actually be inside the skin here. You can see that the one leg goes on the inside of the skin and the other leg comes on the outside of the skin here. So now that we have the tracks loosely installed, we can go ahead and put our seal in. Now these seals are specific to the rear doors. They have the cuts in them here. Those go in the corners. More cuts over here. So we'll start in a corner. So this seal pushes in, and you kind of got to give it a little bit of a pinch to get it all the way in there. Just make sure whenever you're doing your transition here from your door to your track that you don't get it screwed up there, because it likes to bind up kind of funny. So make sure that that's all seated, and then make sure it's all pressed in all the way. So like we got a little bit of a gap up here. So we're going to grab this and just kind of give it a little bit of a pull up. Sometimes they don't want to pull, so you got to pull the whole thing out like that and just start at the top again and push it all back in, because you don't want it to have any gaps. You don't want to have anything sticking down. You want to make sure that that seals all the way up in there. Now that you have your seal in, that'll hold the window a lot nicer. What I'll do is I'll take tape. Just like that. And we're going to try and get this window to go up now. Now the problem with this is there's nothing underneath that window to get it up. If you have some sort of like a hook that you could pull the window up with, that would be a lot more helpful. However, I don't have anything. I don't really want to stick anything down in here that's metal that's going to maybe damage the window. So now I have to reach down in and get this window to come up, and then we'll tape it up to hold it up out of the way where we can continue putting everything in on the bottom. Now the window's not all the way up, but it's up enough that we can work in the bottom of the door here. So this one was a little bit easier to get to this time. Basically, I just tried to push it up a little bit to where I could grab it from the top with my fingers, and then I was able to get my arm in and get underneath the window and push it up. And now that it's in its track, we don't have to worry about the window wiggling or anything like that. So it's pretty sturdy. You know, it's pretty good in this door. And the tape's just going to hold it up so that we don't have to worry about it falling. So I pushed this push pin in here for the harness. I happened to look in the door to make sure we didn't have anything wrong in here, and saw the push pin hanging out there. So I pushed it into the door. So you have 1, 2, 3 push pins that hold this wiring harness against the door. And then had this rivet in here. I think we're going to try and put this in now, and hopefully it doesn't screw us up too badly for putting anything else in. Now it's not tight. I quit with that so that we would have a little bit of wiggle with it. So if I need to get this rod out of the way, I'd be able to, just like I have here. And we're going to go ahead next and put the regulator assembly in. So we have a regulator assembly here. In its current position, it's at about halfway down. So the way I like to do these is I'm going to put power to this regulator, and I'm going to put the window motor almost all the way up. In doing so, that'll let me put the slide in the bottom of this window, and then it'll hold this side of the regulator up, and it'll allow me to choose the correct holes back here for the regulator assembly. Because even though there are a whole bunch of holes here, you only use a couple, and I don't believe you use all 6. I believe you only use 4. So now we got to get this guy in here, but we're going to go ahead and use the probe. This is where the power probe will come in handy here, and we'll put the window all the way up. So these are just reverse polarity. So this window is all the way up right now. So we're going to go ahead and slide it in here. So right now it's in the window assembly. So we can go ahead and get this guy put over here about where it should be. And we want to make sure that we don't have any issues with this rod, which we are on the wrong side of it. So we'll make sure we go on the other side of this rod. So I ended up putting it up a little bit too far. And that's why this is a very, very big trial and error. I only do it this way because it lets me have a lot more room in this door. So I ended up having to take this front window track out because the regulator actually slides around this front track. So I unbolted the track just to slide it out of the way for myself a little bit, and now I was able to line up some of these holes for the window regulator. So I have this one regulator rivet in. It's loose, but all that's going to do is just keep us from having to have any issues with getting these other holes lined up. Because right now the regulator needs to rotate a little bit. So we actually can do that with the probe here, and it should rotate this regulator just a little bit like this to mount the holes. So we'll show you what I'm dealing with here. So you can see the holes don't line up perfectly here. This one's right there. So the regulator needs to turn a little bit, and the window's kind of holding it. Now you can adjust the window up. I could push the window up if I wanted to and get that regulator to spin a little bit. Now I may be able to do that instead of trying to run the regulator through the plug here. But we're going to go ahead and maybe move the window up instead of running the regulator, or move the window down and see if we can get those holes to line up. Once we get those holes lined up, we can go ahead and put our other rivets in and start hooking the rest of this door up. So just like that, we move the regulator around inside the door. Lets us put our rest of our rivets in here. So just 4 rivets on there. Pull that out of the way for now, and we'll go ahead and get these started. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not finishing these rivets off, it's because I want to let this motor get lined up the way that it needs to be lined up. Because if it's not lined up correctly and you pull it tight with these rivets, then what happens is you can't get your other rivet started because it's too tight. So it's easier to leave these rivets a little bit loose. The regulator can't fall off because they've spread a little bit in the back. But we're going to make sure that this wiring is not going to be in any problems with this latch assembly or this lock assembly. And then we're going to go ahead and get the middle track put in. And we will get everything situated. There's another rivet that goes on the bottom of the door here. And once we get that done, we can go ahead and start putting our latch assembly, the handle assembly on. Okay, so this wiring was looped up around this lock assembly, which was no good. We went ahead and just moved it around while we still had access here, so that's nice and clean. So we have our center track assembly here. So we got a bolt up top, which goes right here. And you have these 2 nuts that actually bolt to the window. And there is a rivet that goes in the bottom of this. So that's a rivet hole there. So this actually has to go up here on the other side of this regulator. So I brought this window crank up, or the window attachment point up, and I spun it, got it around the regulator assembly. So you can see right here that the bolt is on the other side, is in between the mounting point and the track assembly. Go ahead and you can get your bolt started here. But before you get too far, make sure you put your window track bolt in here, which I seem to have misplaced. Because if you don't put that bolt in relatively soon, it gets to be a point where you can't get to it. Now this guy's riveted on the bottom. So there is a hole at the bottom of the door. So we'll try to get that shown for you so you can see what we're doing down here. So there's a hole right here, and that's what holds that center track assembly in. So you'll have to put your rivet in here like this and line it up through the door. Now, we had that bolt assembled up top. I did take the bolt out from the top assembly to make sure that we get a nice, good, secure connection on this bottom rivet here. And you just kind of got to fish for it, unless you can see down in there with a mirror, which I have a mirror here. So you have to use two hands, one to run the rivet, one to stick your arm down in the door and get those put together. Once you get them put together here, take your rivet gun and you'll want to go ahead and start putting this guy on. Now that that's riveted on down there, come up back up top, put your bolt in the center piece here. So we got our bolt put back in the top track here, and we have this center track fastened inside the door. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and take our tape off the window and drop this window down. Once we drop the window down, it'll secure onto these two studs here, and that'll secure the window in the tracks, in the door, and we'll be able to move it up and down freely. Now we still have to keep in mind that we have this rod for the door lock assembly. So it has been screwing me this whole time. It's driving me insane. But it is a lot easier to put it in when we put it in. I think the biggest problem is that this fabric covering keeps sliding down and gets hooked on everything. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and get all these rivets put together, and then we'll drop the window down, make sure that this regulator is nice and secure. Now before you do this one, make sure that the little tab is sticking out. So you can see it's pulling on that cable there. So we definitely need to look into see what that's hooked on. So we just kind of caught on the top of the rod there, which was no big deal. So we're going to go ahead and drop this window down. And I'm actually going to put this lock actuator in, this lock rod, because I'm tired of dealing with it. So we're going to go ahead and install it in the door latch, because it shouldn't be in our way anymore. So you can see that it's up out of the way now, and we're not going to have to worry about it getting caught with the window or anything like that. So we're going to take our tape off up here. We should be able to put this window down. Okay, so you see we hit a little stop there. Right now the window is hitting this track. So now you can see that that window fell a little bit more. And we're going to actually tighten this bolt up because I don't want to deal with that again. And we'll continue putting this window down. So we went a little bit too far there. I'm going to show you why. So you want to be able to access the slots in the window. So there's two holes in this window frame down here. And sometimes they can suck to get put in. So we have to mess with it a little bit here. And I like to put anti-seize on these nuts. Now the reason I do that is because these nuts will get corrosion, water, anything that runs down the window will get to these nuts. And if you bust these nuts off in this door, they'll bust the studs, and then it becomes a problem if you ever have to do anything with this, because now you need to figure out how to put studs back in your window track. It's hard enough to find crew cab windows as it is, let alone have ones that need new window tracks that you can't buy. So we're going to go ahead, put some anti-seize on these two studs, put the nuts in, and we'll put the window all the way down and make sure that our window track assembly is correct. We'll run the window up and down a couple times, and then we'll go ahead and put our latch assembly on. So we'll put a little bit of anti-seize on these studs here. And like I said, we do that because we want to make sure that those will actually come back off if they ever have to. So we have our window completely attached to our tracks here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this window all the way down. Now with the window down, we're going to go ahead and tighten up our tracks on the outsides here. What you want to do is you want to have these tight against the window. As best as you can. You don't want this window to be flopping around inside the door. So now that we've gotten those tight, we're going to run the window up and down a couple times. So there's up. And then down again, we'll go back up one more time here. So basically, we just want to make sure that there's no clearance issues. The window goes up and down nicely, and make sure that it doesn't want to get up halfway and stop, or it wants to tilt inside the door. So this was a good test to make sure that they go up and down freely. And we will put the outside window felts on at another time. Not too worried about putting them on right this second. Now, I didn't put them on before we put the windows in because I want to make sure that we have enough room to get down in there. When you put that window felt on before you put the window in, it can kind of restrict the movement that you need to get this window flipped around. And you can put them in pretty easy with the window all the way down. So we're going to do that later. But we're going to go ahead and get our handle assembly put on here now. And that's relatively simple to do. It's just a bunch of rivets. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rivets. And we have 7 sitting here. So we do have enough rivets to do this. And you have to make sure that you find your handle assembly, your latch assembly rod here. So we'll go ahead and start getting this all put together for you. And what I like to do is I like to take this rod and stick it in that hole there, because that's where it actually needs to be. And I will actually put the handle assembly on it. And now in doing that, I don't have to worry about trying to figure out how I'm going to get it put on there later. And this will just bolt on when we're all done. The same thing here, get one rivet on here and get it started. Now you can see that I have the harness up above this door bracket, and this guy will actually latch in there just like that. Get our bolt out of here that didn't want to come out earlier. So we could actually bolt this handle on now. We can go ahead and finish putting all of our rivets in. And once you got them all started, you can go ahead and just finish them all off. Now I am going to go ahead and put this window back down, make sure we have no clearance issues with anything. So you can see that harness got moved a little bit there. It's because this needs to be pushed into this hole to keep it out of that regulator assembly. And even then, it's still a little bit tight. But that's where that harness is supposed to go. It's all push pinned in where it's supposed to be. And then this will plug into your regulator motor here and clip into this push pin right here. So that's the rear doors installed, and you can see it's kind of a tedious process, and you can go about it however you wish you'd like to go about it, but I found that this is the simplest way to do it. It's a little bit of screwing around. There's not a whole lot that you can really do with the engineering setup side of this, and it's just kind of crappy how you have to put it in a certain way. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it all put in correctly and easily. So that was the finishing touch. Here's the handle. You want to make sure that your latch assembly does work. You can still see it wants to pull on this harness a little bit, but that shouldn't be a big issue at all. But I hate how stiff these are. There's nothing you can really do about it, but it's the way they've always been. So make sure before you shut the door that it's unlocked and that this does actually work the way that it's supposed to. We'll probably end up spraying some lubricant inside these hinges to make sure that, spray some lubricant inside these latches to make sure that they're well lubricated and functioning properly, because this is pretty stiff. And I can see why these rear regulators always fail in these trucks, or they're really slow. This setup is very crappy. So it is what it is. But that's your rear doors here. I'm going to go ahead and jump up to the front doors now, and I'll show you how to put your front door together too. All right, guys, so I said that we were going to be doing the front doors next. Well, the time on the video is going to be pretty long for this one, so we're going to go ahead and cut this video off, and we will go ahead and start up a new video for the front door. So this video is going to be specific to the rear doors here. So really appreciate you guys watching. So keep a lookout for the finishing half of this video, which would be the front door here that we're going to be doing next. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Appreciate you watching. Please hit the subscribe and like button if you like what you see on my videos. And hopefully we can keep these going. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.